morning, everyone. Can you hear me? We're going to get started. I don't want to keep you too long. I know it's a beautiful Saturday, so you all have things you'd rather be doing than being in a room for 2 hours. But anyway, thank you all for coming. This is really important to us that we have as many members of our community that come and participate in this. But along with me, we have some council members and commissioners, I think, here today. Maybe not some commissioners, but we have Vice Mayor Laura Palmer-Lohan in the back there. Councilmember Sarah McDowell is here. And there's Adam Rack, our other council member here. And I understand our former mayor, Tom Davids, is here. Where are you, Tom? Oh, there you are. Tom was on the council for many years, and he was sort of my role model, but I fail all the time to match up to the standard that he set. This is a joint effort between the city and Home for All, which is a San Mateo County collaborative aimed at helping our community talk more constructively about the shared challenge of housing. I was on the Home for All committee. Actually, I'm still on it as an alternate. Laura is our primary representative on the Home for All committee. It just started about 4 years ago. So together we've been part of this committee since its inception. But we've been working hard to reach out to community members from all parts of the city and invite their participation in this conversation. This effort is to bring the community together to think about and talk about how we can shape our shared future. This is the second community meeting. The first one was in November, and since then we've been continuing with outreach efforts through social media, in person, and intercept interviews. I had to ask what intercept interviews means, and I guess it means man on the street, which I relate to. Yeah, that's right. But I want to thank our community partners who have helped with the outreach, which include our police department, our fire department, San Carlos School District, the Parent Teachers Association, and also thank you to the Parks and Rec department for helping us host the event here, which is, I think, superior to the Hiller Aviation Museum. No offense to the Hiller people, but we like it here. Additionally, we want to thank the San Mateo County Transit District and HIP Housing for being here this morning. And SamTrans is there. And just a quick word about HIP Housing. I was on their board for many years, and they're an amazing organization that does nothing but find people places to live. Whether it's home sharing or being in an apartment building that they own, they are one of the unsung and probably less known housing organizations in this county, and they've been around, well, at least 30 years. I'm sure they've been around longer, but I was on the board, I won't say how long ago, but it was a long time. So the format of today's meetings will be similar to our last community conversation, with brief presentations followed by roundtable discussions, and the focus, which is the focus, really, these tables is the focus of the meeting. It's very different from a planning commission meeting or a city council meeting where we just have people come up and make comments, and it's very structured, and we give people 2 minutes and then we have to make a decision. It's not like that today, because we, the staff, the council members, by the way, did I miss any of our commissioners? Are any of them here? Okay. None of them came in late. All right. We are basically listeners today. So we're going to walk around. We just want to listen. We're not going to offer our opinion. You may ask us a question or something. If I'm asked a question, I'm just going to try to maybe clarify. But my job today is to listen to you. We really want to find out what you think. And the input from today's conversations will be used to shape the continuing discussion about our future in San Carlos, and will be taken into consideration by us, the council, and help us make informed decisions about housing-related policies and projects. So, to get started, I would like to welcome our lead facilitator, Susan Clark, from Common Knowledge.
I can't stand still behind the podium. again, my name is Susan Clark. Thank you so much. I have the privilege of being invited back to be your lead facilitator today. And so we just want to continue some introductions. We're here from Common Knowledge in partnership with Home for All and very much in partnership with the city and the community of San Carlos to together have a learning experience so you all can keep moving forward, building on the conversation you had in November. And today there is a whole team of people who want to make sure you have the opportunity to have the learning experience that the community has asked for. And we think one of the most important parts of the team, in addition to the city staff, in addition to the council members who are listeners, is the fact that you have a table facilitator, someone who has volunteered to spend their Saturday morning. They're just choosing to do this like you're choosing to do this. So they're here like you, volunteering their time to help you have a conversation. So could the table facilitators at each table raise their hand? Let's give them a hand for helping us. And the city staff who've made the information, the presentations, and also what's in your packet, they're going to be staying afterwards, as well as Home for All to be able to answer questions. So we'll get as far as we can in the conversation. So we have a wonderful group of people here today, but the most important part of the introduction is the community members. You chose to spend your time together here. So why don't we just take a moment at your tables and do a quick go round. You're gonna have plenty of time for longer discussions, so this is not the life story moment. This is, hi, I live in this neighborhood in San Carlos, I work in this part of San Carlos. So we're just gonna do a quick go round now, okay? One of the best parts of this meeting is you get to meet other members of your community. So I can see that you're going to enjoy your time at the tables. So we're going to keep some of those introductions going if you didn't have a chance to complete them. But why don't we also find out across the room a little bit more about what part of the San Carlos community is here today. So first of all, if you could raise your hand if you work in San Carlos, if San Carlos is your place of work. Okay, great. And then if you happen to live in San Carlos, why don't you please stand up? Now, this is the digestion breakfast part. Okay, great. Wonderful. Okay. And then if you have lived in San Carlos more than 25 years, you may sit down. Okay. If you have lived in San Carlos, say 5 to 25 years, you may sit down. And then anybody who is new to San Carlos within the last 5 years, great, we got some new, let's welcome them. Today's meeting is going to cover transportation as well as housing based upon input from the community. So we also want to know a little bit about how you got here today. Is there anybody who walked? Stand up if you walked. Nice. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, anybody who rode their bike here today? Okay. All right. And those of you who drove a car, okay, but stand up if you drove in your car with another person. It was not a solo car trip. Okay, all right. We'll give them some points for that. Electric car, yes. All right. Electric car enthusiasts unite. Okay. What is this wonderful cross-section of people going to be doing together today? And again, I just want to thank Home for All, Common Knowledge, and our volunteer facilitators over the Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center. So we're going to broaden the conversation. Some of you participated in the November. Who here was at the November conversation at the Hiller Museum? Great. Who here did not participate in that conversation? And perfect, because we designed an experience where those of you who were there in November can share, and yet those of you who weren't there can come right into this conversation. So what we'll be doing is broadening the conversation to intersect housing with the also related topic of transportation. We're going to also provide an overview of new state housing legislation. because that kind of sets the table for what you can and can't do here in San Carlos. And we also want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to understand what's coming up for the city of San Carlos planning things, and also what you can do individually and collectively on the topics of housing and transportation. And that's why it's so great that HIP Housing and the County Transit District are here. So what we're going to do before we get into the specifics of the meeting, I'd also like to take this opportunity to introduce Jessica Stanfield-Mullen, who is the representative here from Home for All, and explain, the host, if you will, the lead collaborator with this city. Let's give Jessica a hand.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. Home for All is a countywide community collaborative that works with all of our jurisdictions, our large and small employers, for nonprofit developers, community-based organizations that offer housing services, transportation agencies, school districts, the clergy, really all of our community partners, to bring them together to think about innovative ways and creative partnerships in which we can produce and preserve housing at all income levels. And the way that we do that through Home for All is really sort of three main areas. One is through education, looking at ways in which cities have taken innovative approaches, thinking about new programs, sort of doing research within the Bay Area, the state, and the country to really think about what are some creative ways in which we could add housing here. We do that through innovation as well, thinking, exploring new partnerships, whether they're with foundations, with cities, with employers, really thinking how can we really utilize and capitalize everybody here in the community to really think creatively about producing and preserving housing. And then lastly, convening, bringing our residents together, bringing our community partners together through various conversations to talk about what are some housing solutions, particularly that individual cities could explore, and then also things that we could do together as a larger community throughout the county to really think about how do we add those units at all income levels and for all ages so that everyone has a chance to call San Mateo County home. So I want to thank you all for giving up your Saturday morning. This is really great, not just for the city, but for Home for All in general. We're really excited and encouraged by your enthusiasm to come talk today. So thank you so much.
So it's just very exciting to be here in this second meeting in partnership with San Carlos. We, as Jessica mentioned, Home for All and Common Knowledge and Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center have worked in many cities, but the way that the team at the City and Community of San Carlos has really dug into this work and said what came out of the first conversation and what kind of second conversation do we want to have is pretty exciting. So again, we're going to be having a conversation today about learning together about what is the landscape, who's living here, what's going on with transportation, and then what are the options for San Carlos moving forward. We're going to start by hearing what's been heard so far in the prior conversation in November, as well as other outreach. And in your folders, there's a very attractive trifold brochure about the November meeting. There's also a November meeting report. You do not, this is not essay exam. You don't have to read all of these things now. We just want you to know that this is available for you as a resource. We're going to have a discussion after the first presentation by Al on housing and transportation. Then after that discussion, we're going to have a second presentation about an overview about what's happening with state housing laws, how those might affect what you can and can't plan here in San Carlos, and then also what's moving forward, the options, the things that you all are going to be working on together in future planning that touches on housing and also acknowledges the interrelationships with transportation. So to have this conversation together, you have some materials in your folder. So let's take a look. Pull open your folder, and you'll see here's the agenda that tells you who's going to present what when. And the main focus, has been acknowledged, are the conversations, your conversations, discussions 1 and 2 at the table. Now, to help you during your conversation, you have a personalized input and feedback form where you can share individual input. And there's also information that the city has prepared to respond to the information needs that have come up from the community. So how are we going to have these wonderful conversations? doing what we did last time, which is create an environment where we understand that the individual experience we each bring to the situation is as important as the technical and policy information. It's the combination of those two together. So on your table, and your facilitator will be supporting you, are conversation guidelines. So today, you're not coming in being asked to have a position on something. You might, but you're going to speak from your own lived experience. I met someone coming in at the breakfast table. You know, her daughter wanted to be here today, but her daughter's working. So she's here to listen on behalf of her daughter, who's a little frustrated. She can't find housing in San Carlos. So it's just like that personal lived experience, and I'm just sharing that out as an example. You're going to listen to understand each other. How's that landing for you? What is happening in their experiences similar to yours, or maybe it's different? Respect differences. Be curious. Again, you're sharing what it's like to live or work in San Carlos right now, and how that lands and how you understand the options for your community. We're going to let everyone participate. We know some of us like to talk more than others. I love talking. And then some of us are kind of like digesting and listening and taking it in. But we want to make sure you have the opportunity to hear from everybody at the table. So your facilitator and you all can support that everybody participating. And then this thing that's really important as a community figures out how to learn together is your questions are really valuable. Now, maybe not every question that comes up for you can get answered in the time for our conversations today, but you can write those questions down on the input form, and they will get into the next generation of information provided by the city. So the information in the handouts, in the presentations, were all coming out of the last question. So you're helping everybody in the community learn. So maybe other people at the table are using some jargon or some acronym and you don't know what it is. Please, you will do everybody a favor if you ask, what the heck is that? And if you have questions that are above and beyond what could be handled in the conversation, then staff will be staying after to help. So that's the type of conversation we want to have together, and it really helps a community expand its capacity when you understand that today it's not thumbs up or thumbs down, as the mayor said, but learning together about, well, what is and what are our options? So to practice this listening, we want to start with what we call a think, pair, share. Who here is sitting next to someone they already know? You're just stuck next to your spouse. No, sorry, I'm a long time married. Is there anybody here who needs to move? Because if you sit and chat briefly with someone you don't know, you're expanding your neural capacity. You know, what's possible in your brain. So if everybody got somebody relatively new that they can chat with, a partner. You got this? Everybody know? Okay. Yeah, David's going to get folks moving at his table. Okay, we got a trade going on here. All right. So the question that we're going to have you answer, what you'll be doing is listen. One of you will take a turn as a listener, and during this 90 seconds, you are not going to jump in and say, "Oh yeah, me too, me too." No, you are going to completely and fully listen to Martha when she speaks. You're going to completely and fully listen to the other person, okay? You understand that? Because that really expands your capacity to understand somebody else's experience. Okay, so you understand your question. When did someone in our community help you or you help someone? Okay, so this is an example of, well, first of all, let's see a show of hands. Has anybody here ever helped anybody in the community? Okay, that's why I like working with San Carlos. It's that kind of place, right? So we thought this was a pretty safe question. Okay, so when did you help someone in your community or someone helped you? So we're going to have one person designated to go first. You go 90 seconds, I'll ring the bell, and then you'll switch. You understand the instructions? Okay, now how do you decide who's going to go first? Well, I heard there's some kind of football game tomorrow or something. I don't know. And the colors red and gold. So whichever of your partners has anything even approximating red or gold colors, they're the one who gets to go first. Okay, does that make sense? All right. And one more thing. Going first means you listen first. Okay? All right. Okay, got it? Go. I see some smiles, so I guess there's some good stuff that's been happening here. All right, well, thank you so much for getting warmed up on this notion of listening and sharing experiences about your community. And so to kick off the presentation, here is Al. I'm going to give the first city presentation.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Al Savay. I'm the Community and Economic Development Director with the City of San Carlos, and welcome this morning. And I'm going to summarize what we've heard so far and also provide a little broader context about the region and some data that's kind of interesting. So last November, community members, the City Council, and city staff all gathered at the Hiller Aviation Museum for our first Welcome Home San Carlos meeting. And it was a great conversation. And in your folders, right in the front, you'll have a summary of what happened at that meeting. And it was an opportunity to compare experiences and talk about the hopes and the future of San Carlos. And this word bubble, and which I don't get to say very often, which is very exciting, word bubble highlights that what we've heard and how the issue of housing affects people in San Carlos. And here's some of just the basic things that we heard. We heard about growth, public transportation, the desire to support family-owned businesses, traffic, diversity. Those were some of the main issues that we heard people talk about. So since that time, we continued our conversations, and one of the things that we were interested in doing with Home for All is to reach groups as well that you don't normally talk to as often as a group. And so we've continued our outreach efforts there. We've reached out to service providers, including police, firefighters, and teachers. And we also spoke to parents, we spoke to downtown employees and other community members to better understand their experiences with housing. And so here's some of the things that we've heard. Housing in San Carlos is too expensive for service providers such as the teachers, police, and fire folks. Utilizing public transit is often not logistically feasible for some of our commuters. The small town feel is at risk for overgrowth with traffic congestion and parking issues. Rising home prices make it unaffordable for young adults and young families, and new apartments and condos that are being built in our community are unaffordable for working class folks in our town. So I'm going to provide some more, some broader information about the city of San Carlos. And as you can see here, our population is about 30,000, just over 30,000. Our median age is 42 years old. About 30% of us rent, and 70% or so own in San Carlos. Now, in terms of housing types and the breakdown of housing types, we have nearly 12,000 units overall, and we have about, I'd say about 70% of our land area is dedicated to single-family residential. And so we have about 8,600 single-family residential homes. About 73% of our home stock, our supply, is single-family residential. In the multifamily area, I'd say about 10% of our land area is dedicated to the multifamily area, and that's the area around downtown, along El Camino Real, and up San Carlos Avenue, up toward the hills. And so about 26% is multifamily. And those are apartments and condominiums, and also an emerging area is mixed use, where you have retail on the ground floor and residential above. And then ADUs. Now, ADUs are accessory dwelling units. We also know those as second units or granny units. And this is an emerging area of housing in the state of California, not just in San Carlos. And the state of California, particularly the governor and legislators at the state level, see this as a real opportunity to increase affordable housing in the state. So they've recently passed some legislation that is moving cities in the direction of making it easier for these ADUs to happen. They're asking us to speed up the regulatory process. They're cutting back on some of the regulations that we have in our city. So all the cities in the Bay Area are now updating their accessory dwelling unit ordinances. and we are too. And we're right in the middle of it. And we're working with our Planning Commission on that, and Martin Romo is going to talk about, our Housing and Economic Development Manager will talk to you about what the next steps in that process are. But we're right in the middle of that. And these are, what we're seeing in our community is things in the backyard. We're seeing things over garages that exist there. And the state law even allows you to put a junior ADU inside your single-family residence. So one of the things that we're working on is how do we fit those into our single-family residential neighborhoods from a design standpoint and a privacy standpoint. So that's what we're talking to the Planning Commission about. Now, in terms of ownership and rental costs, median home price in the area, $2 million. Average rent, $37,000 for a one-bedroom, and for a two-bedroom, $46,35. So as you can see, it's fairly high in the area. Now, jobs housing in San Mateo County, we've added 83,000 jobs just in this 7-year period, and only about 7,100 housing units. So that's about a 12-to-1 ratio, and we could probably do some better on that. Now, in our area, it's an estimated in San Carlos that we have about 15,850, or almost 16,000 jobs or workers employed in the city of San Carlos. And as I showed you earlier, we have about 12,000 housing units. We actually have a pretty good jobs housing balance right now. That's about a 1.3. So that's not bad for the city of San Carlos. Now we know that a lot of jobs want to come into San Carlos, and that's one of the things that we need to talk about over the next few years and how we're going to accommodate that. But 92% of the workers that come to city of San Carlos commute, and most likely are in single occupancy vehicles. Many people are in single occupancy vehicles, and about 8% of us live and work in San Carlos. A few years ago, we redid the general plan, which is our master plan for the city of San Carlos, and we gathered a lot of data, and that's really important. What I've learned over the years as a planner is that gathering data and going back to the source and trying to figure things out, really, you can enlighten yourself on kind of how to work toward fixing problems. And so what we found out about 10 years ago or so is that about 82% of the people that work outside of San Carlos, that commute from San Carlos, are also driving in single occupancy vehicles. We're just driving in our cars. And so we also know, all of us know, that there's an inextricable link between transportation and housing supply, right? And the intent, some of the ideas are to try and put more people closer to transit. One last thing in terms of data gathering and sort of the enlightenment that comes from data gathering. I live in San Carlos. I recently moved out of San Carlos for about a year as we remodeled our home. And we were in an apartment right next to 101 near the Marsh on-ramp near Facebook. And I would drive my kids, there's a freshman and a sophomore into San Carlos to go to school every morning. And it was horrendous at Marsh and the main road that goes to Facebook. I mean, just incredible amount of traffic would come in there in the morning. And we knew how to get there, but still it was crazy traffic. And we would pull onto the on-ramp going towards San Carlos. And the wonderful thing about it is I had 3 people in the car, and I was the first one in the commuter lane every morning at the light. And there were lines of cars. There were 2 lanes of cars all the way out to Marsh Road. And I looked at my kids and I would tell them, you know, we're going to try and fix this problem. You see, all these people in their single occupancy vehicles, and if we can't do it, you're going to have to do it too. You're going to have to do it for us. So it's really one of those data points that I found quite interesting, kind of experiencing firsthand again. So consequences for our county, the median home price has doubled. As we can see, more than 210,000 people commute into San Mateo County and work every day. We had a poll from the Bay Area Council recently that said some folks are starting to get fed up, right? And they're talking about leaving the Bay Area. So in the coming years, as we get underway, I would encourage you to remain involved in this discussion. And it's really important that we hear from you before the city puts pen to paper on how to solve some of these problems. But please don't be discouraged, because while these are big issues that we're grappling with, I believe that there are solutions somewhere out there. And the city of San Carlos has some plans. Martin Romo is going to talk about our short, medium, and long-term plans for the city of San Carlos, and I would encourage you to get and stay involved in this process moving forward. And the region has a plan too, and the governor of California and many legislators and policymakers are trying to solve this problem too. So with that, what I'd like to do is introduce Lori and Jessica from SamTrans to talk about some of their goals.
Hi everyone, my name is Jessica Epstein, and Lori and I both work with the San Mateo County Transit District. I work predominantly with the bus system. She works with Caltrain, so I'm going to talk about what we're doing right now, because your local transportation agencies are also very focused on the traffic congestion and what we can do and how we can provide the best service. So SamTrans is currently doing a project called Reimagine SamTrans. This is the technical term for it is a comprehensive operational analysis. This is the type of essentially inward look that bus systems do regularly throughout their lifespan. We did the last one in 2013, so we're on schedule for that, but we also have the very nice benefit of Measure W passing in 2018, which allows us to do this in the context of where can we make our service better instead of something more along the lines of pulling back the service. So we are in the real world. We have an operator shortage. We are working through that, but Reimagine SamTrans will help us bring all the different pieces together. So this is a holistic look at our system. We have three primary goals. One is to improve the experience of existing SamTrans customers. They are our riders. They are really the core, and we do lose some ridership every year. So where can we make that experience for existing riders better? Grow new and more frequent ridership on SamTrans. So that's two things. That is, how do we create new and innovative types of services that will draw more people into our system, but also more frequently? How can we take an existing SamTrans rider who may use the bus to get to work? Well, maybe if we make some changes, they might use it for social events, shopping, things like that. And build SamTrans' efficiency and effectiveness as a transit leader, transit provider. So what this means is, can we do more with less? You know, we do have this operator shortage, so how do we make a better system with the number of operators we have? How do we better use our resources and really see where we can shore up the system to put the best bus network out there that we can? So this is our timeline right now, and you see we're kind of in that winter 2019 going into 2020. We had a big round of outreach in the fall where we were really it was as open as you can be. This is our system, tell us what you think. That is closed. We did a survey, but I do want to let you know that our website is down in the corner, reimaginesamtrans.com. We are always taking comments. So I learned a lot about a shuttle that existed in San Carlos in the 90s today. Didn't know about that shuttle, but you should know we're actually piloting right now in Pacifica a curb-to-curb on-demand bus system. We're learning a lot out in Pacifica, and one of the things we're looking at through Reimagine is there a market for that elsewhere? So if you think there is a market for that in San Carlos, please go on our website and make that comment in the comment form. So we'll be out again in the spring, in the May time period, and we're going to have up to 3 alternatives for every route in the system. We have 70 routes, so an immense amount of work is going into that, and it'll be from, you know, essentially what you see today, maybe some time changes, to a holistic, complete change of the bus. Some might only have 1 or 2, some might have big, or up to 3. It can be big. We really don't know yet what's coming out, but that will be in the spring, and you'll have the opportunity to give feedback on any routes in the system, but particularly, of course, the ones that touch San Carlos. Then, if you move over into winter 2020, we'll narrow that down to one network, where this is the system that we are proposing for SamTrans. We'll again be getting feedback on that system. We'll make adjustments so that in 2021, you see it'll be August of 2021, we will be introducing a new route network. Again, it could look really similar to what we see today. It could look pretty different. It's that conversation with the community that's really helping us determine where the changes should be made. So SamTrans is an open book. Go to our website. Tell us what you think. We are taking in all comments, and I promise you our planning staff is meticulously going through all of them.
Hi, I'm Lori Lowe, and I'm with Caltrain, and I'm also a San Carlos resident, so I'm really excited to see so many of you out here today working so hard to help make sure our city is just the most amazing place to live. So I'm here to talk a little bit about our electrification project. I talked to a number of you who are daily commuters, and so right now we have about 30-year-old diesels out there, and we are working to electrify our system so it'll be cleaner, greener, less pollution, quieter, and also more efficient. So the new high-performance trains will allow us to stop and start faster, which allows us to have a much more efficient system, and also we can add more cars on and grow our capacity over time without degrading service. So we're a 51-mile system, and electrification will be from San Jose to the Tamian Station, from Tamian Station to San Jose to San Francisco. So the other piece, I'm trying to look through this fast, is the Caltrain business plan, and we're looking at how we're going to grow to 2040. And last October, our board adopted a service vision plan. It's moderate growth, but we're looking to accommodate about triple the amount of riders that we do today. And we're looking at 8 rush hour trains per hour per direction. Right now we only have 5. We're looking at service all day. 21 stations would have every 15-minute service, and the express trains would come every 15 minutes. So it'd be a substantial improvement to today. And if you look to the right, you're right, yeah. You can see the lanes. Right now, Caltrain has about the capacity of 4 lanes of freeway traffic, but with this plan, we would be able to add an additional 5.5 lanes of capacity. So that's taking that traffic off the freeways and putting it on our public transportation system. So this, if you want more information, there's caltrain2040.org, and for electrification, it's calmod.org, and Calmod's Caltrain Modernization. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Jessica and Lori. They will not be able to stay completely after the whole meeting at 12, but they have all kinds of information if you didn't have the chance to pick it up. And as they said, they're very keen on getting your input through their engagement processes. And as Al said, this means that the city of San Carlos is not alone, right? These are multidimensional issues, and so that the city's working with multiple public agencies collaboratively. So what does this mean for your conversation? Your first table discussion is going to be, well, what transportation options do you hope to see in San Carlos? And you are able to use the stimulus you just got, but you may have other ideas about transportation options. So some of them, we're trying to acknowledge the regional landscape, the local landscape, but you might have some hyper-local. So it's really at whatever level. This is a chance for you to share what's top of mind for you. And really the question here is, how can the San Carlos community work together to reduce traffic and improve mobility? We've heard that's a shared goal. What are your ideas around that shared goal? So your table facilitator will be taking notes. If you have detailed input or detailed questions, please use your individual input sheet. They're going to be recording and sharing out large themes. And remember, the council members will be coming around, and they are listeners. Now, there are a few open seats, so if the council members actually want to perch on a chair, they are able to do that. If you can resist the temptation to turn to them and ask your favorite question, right? So they are really, you would be chipping them of the opportunity to listen into the conversation. Do you understand that? Great. So this is your chance again to dive into this very important issue the community's identified, and we'll take about 15 plus minutes to have this conversation. We're going to get started doing our short report out from each table. We're going to be sharing a mic, so I'm coming around. And we're doing this in whatever order we come around. And David at table 2 is going to start off. And again, we're asking each table to spend about 40 45 seconds with the high-level themes. And remember, more detailed input is going to be typed up from all the table notes and your individual input sheets. But let's start off with table 2.
Okay, very quickly, we need more transportation alternatives, period, just across the board. There's a lack of overall connectivity in the transit alternatives that we have, so we need to improve that. And we have 2 specifically for San Carlos. Solaro Street should be pedestrian only, and we should have shuttles or on call or on a loop to get to the hills and the other areas in San Carlos.
Okay, thank you, table 2. Let's do it.
Okay, so we had the same thing as table 2, a couple of same things, coordinating between the different modes of transportation that needs to be improved, running a pilot like they are in Pacifica, also safety issues around bicycling around the town, as well as safety issues when you're traveling at nighttime on Caltrains and that sort of thing, and possibly doing a subscription service for transportation.
Okay, thank you very much. Table 3, coming over to table 5.
We touched on some of the same themes around biking and how to make it safer for bicyclists, even on commutes that might be less than 3 miles. We'd like to see more local shuttle or bus service, as opposed to bus service largely focused around El Camino. A lot of people struggle to get connected to the bus routes when they live farther away from the El Camino corridor. And we also talked about the value around choosing where your home is located based on the transit options that are available. And we do have local transit options such as the San Carlos Caltrain station. However, sometimes the transit options there don't always meet the needs of the morning commuters. So they find themselves going to other local transit stops, which would require them to drive.
Okay, thank you, table 5.
We agree with the shuttles to the neighborhoods. There is a suggestion of incentives for ride sharing, tax breaks, et cetera, easier to access, how they might find ways to ride share, perhaps through commuter.org. And then the second one is priorities for movers, e-scooters, e-skateboards. Maybe they get to park in front of the restaurants and the cars park where you have to walk.
All right, thank you, table 4. Table 9.
We had a great table. Some of the same issues came up at our table. We had some very specific changes we'd like to see in traffic patterns. One would be decrease the traffic on specific routes. We have a list of 3. The Crestview Belmont barricade came up. Some of you know about that. The 280 to Edgewood to Crestview Drive. And then some people would like to also see better coordination of signals along major traffic routes such as El Camino Real and some of the other major thoroughfares that go across town.
All right. Thank you very much, table 9. Coming over to table 6.
Hi, we had a lot of really great collaboration at our table. One really big theme that came up was school congestion, and an idea that our group had was to have local drop-off and pick-up buses that drove around to the different schools, which would alleviate school congestion and the probability that there would be an accident. And it was really important to our group to have frequent buses that ran throughout San Carlos and also to neighboring towns.
Thank you, table 6. Coming over to table 8.
Thank you. We had a lot of the same themes. Our top 3 were having some kind of pedestrian boulevard streets like San Francisco is doing with Market Street, so some places where there are no cars, having San Carlos be more bicycle friendly and implement the bicycle master plan that's being developed, and bringing back Scoot, which is the shuttle, and so having a good way to get up into the hills, down, and back without walking. Thanks.
Thank you, table 8.
Thank you. Our top 3 themes, first of all, I used to be programmed, the Scoot. They said it was wonderful for young people, for homebound elderly people, that it was an 18-month trial. And then they mentioned the train situation from San Carlos to Burlingame, instead of matching up to BART, going directly to San Francisco. And finally, the scooters. So we even came up with a slogan, Scoot and Scooters. Thank you.
Thank you, Table 7. And we land at Table 1 to finish.
Our discussion is like around coordination, and in terms of in between the public transit agency and also between private shuttle, providers. The second one is to ensure the safety on all the public transportation and a convenience. So the on-demand shuttle service, curb to curb, is definitely really awesome idea. And then efficient in terms of having like a share ride app, so we can coordinate all the share rides. So.
Thank you, Table 1. And why don't you all just give yourselves a complete round of applause, because it was a really nice conversation here. And just a reminder, I see some of you using this, but not all of you. The individual feedback form, maybe you heard an idea from another table. This is a chance for you to pull this individual feedback form out and underscore, oh, I was really excited when I heard about X, or I want to learn more about Y, okay? So this is a chance for you to continue to let the city listen and each other listen to what are the ideas that are sparking the most interest and energy. So next up is our second presentation, which is going to be about the state policy and also what's coming up planning-wise in the city of San Carlos. So let's welcome Martin Romo. Here he is.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Martin Romo, and I am the city's Housing and Economic Development Manager. So as we all know, the issue of housing is not unique to San Carlos alone. This is really a regional issue and really a state of California issue. Recently, the state legislature and the governor have taken very strong positions to try and get more housing built here in California. There's a goal of building about 3.5 million new homes throughout the state by 2025. So we want to highlight a few of the things that the state is doing to try and get to that goal. The state has started to provide new sources of funding to try and get units built. So in 2018, Propositions 1 and 2 were passed, and these have added $6 billion in bond funds. And in 2019, an additional $2.7 billion was added. And this is for all different types of housing, from homeless housing up to moderate rate housing. And a few different types of bills have been passed. So I won't spend too much time on the specifics of these bills because they can be a little complicated, but in your folders there is a little sheet that has some more information about these bills and then links to where you can find more resources to help you understand these bills a little bit more in depth. But essentially SB 330 has helped to process applications as they come in and streamline the process for developers that want to build housing throughout California. SB 50 was a bill that you may have heard of. It's been kind of a controversial bill throughout California. It recently failed at the Senate level last Wednesday, but this bill was looking at upzoning around our transit corridors and some jobs-rich areas of the city, different cities. But as I mentioned, that is no longer an active bill. But what that did let cities know is that the state is going to be looking at ways to leverage its existing transit corridors to try and build and focus additional housing being built. So some future bill that does similar to what this bill wanted to do is likely to come in the near future. A few other bills have also been recently passed. SB 329 now prohibits discrimination against the source of income that someone has to pay for housing, so you can't discriminate someone based on whether they collect Social Security benefits, Section 8 vouchers, or any other source of income. So that can no longer be a question on a rental application, for example. AB 1482 was passed, and this limits the amount that a rent may be increased by on an annual basis. So, and it adds what's called a just cause eviction clause. So landlords can no longer just ask someone to leave for no reason. They have to have what's called a just cause. It has to be something like they're not paying rent or a legitimate reason before they ask someone to leave the unit. The rental increase limit now prohibits anyone from increasing rent by more than 5% plus whatever the cost of inflation is. So a typical number would be 3%, so about 8% cap from one year to the next. So I want to talk a little bit about what's called the Regional Housing Needs Assessment allocation. This is essentially the number of units that every jurisdiction has to build. The state would like each jurisdiction to build in what's called the housing element time frame. So the city of San Carlos has a housing element that goes from 2015 to 2023. That's the current housing cycle that we're in. So the state has let the city know that we have to try and build about 596 units. That's our goal to try and meet to keep a pace with the goals that we need for the state to be in a good, healthy condition. And so as you can see, we're kind of getting close to the end of that period. The state is currently assessing its RENA, as it's called in this acronym form, to let the municipalities around the Bay Area what their new allocation is going to be. And it's anticipated that this may be up to double or maybe triple the amount. We won't know until later this year. But the city will have to take on a few studies to try and figure out where we can provide these new housing units. As part of this overall goal, it is split up into a few categories. Above moderate is just your typical market rate development that can be sold at any price or rented at any price. But there's also what's called below market rate, which is what we think of as affordable housing. And so the state gives you goals based on these different categories, with the intent of making sure that we provide enough housing to house all types of people in our communities. So with that as kind of a foundation, what are some of the options that San Carlos is exploring to try and meet our goals? We have a series of different initiatives, and I'd like to lay them out and give you options to get involved in all of these processes. So as we mentioned in the last presentation, accessory dwelling units, granny flats, second units are a big push to try and help increase density, particularly in our single family districts. They provide a great opportunity for both the main tenants to provide a new source of income and to allow for a more affordable housing type. We are currently looking at updating our ADU ordinance to bring it in, to make it consistent with the new changes in state laws, and also to try and create some incentives to get people to build them. It's going to go before the Planning Commission. I think we currently have it targeted for the March 3rd meeting. And we also have set up a website, cityofsancarlos.org/ADU, if you want to find out more about this initiative and some of the milestones and ways that you can get involved in the process. We also do have some resources here in the back. San Mateo County has provided a handbook. If you're interested in building your own ADU or want to learn more about the process for that, there's a great booklet that they have back here and is also available on the San Mateo County website. Oh, and here is that website, secondunitcentersmc.org. Great website and great booklet. Please grab one in the back if you're thinking about building one of these. Another thing that we're doing is we are currently embarking on updating the city's below market rate ordinance. And so again, these are all the units that the city's trying to build that are below what you could just buy on the open market. Currently, we require developers that build units of 7 or more units, so mid-sized to large units, to build a certain percentage of their units restricted for affordable housing. So it's 15% currently, and we're looking at ways to perhaps increase that number, see if it can go up to 20%, 16%. We're looking at what's feasible and how high we can go to make sure that we're kind of optimizing how development is happening. Also, some of you may have gone to the back of the room here to see our HIP housing booth. HIP housing, as our mayor mentioned earlier, is a great resource that provides a series of programs, one of which is their shared housing model, which helps to match people that have space in their home with people who need an affordable place to live. If you haven't yet, please check out the booth back here and check out hiphousing.org to learn a little bit more. We also do provide grants and grant funding for different organizations that help to provide housing programs in the city. We provide funds to groups that provide emergency assistance for paying rent. A lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and just missing that one rent payment might actually put them at risk of losing housing. So making sure that those funds are available, things for relocation assistance, or maybe just repairs or modernization of units, are something that the city currently supports. We're also looking at doing an update to our general plan and zoning ordinance. And so in this effort, we're really looking for creative ways to look at our inventory of land, what controls are on that land, how high things can get built, how many units can be built on a parcel, and all of these things are governed by the rules in the zoning ordinance. So we're going to look, we're going to kind of open up the book and see how we can modify things to encourage and incentivize developers to be able to build more units that can house all these different households that we need built here, with the ultimate goal of just increasing our supply. We're also looking at updating our housing element. As I mentioned, those RENA numbers that are coming that are going to show how many units we have to build will require us to take a very hard look to find sites where these units can potentially be built. So this is going to be a very robust activity to try and figure out how we can meet our housing goals. And through this and really all of these other initiatives that I've described, community input, all of your input is vital and essential to the planning process. 3 more initiatives. We are, as has been mentioned, there's a bike and pedestrian master plan underway. We also have our economic development plan, of which housing is a big focus for this next cycle that's going to go from 2020 to 2023. It impacts all levels of our community. Our small businesses need places for their employees to work, and it's really an interconnected issue. So that's currently ongoing. We're also looking at childcare. Childcare is getting really expensive in town, so figuring out ways to provide more funding and allow for more spaces to be created in the city to meet that initiative. So a lot of ways, a lot of initiatives going on, a lot of ways for your input to be heard and to help us move this conversation forward. And with that, thank you.
Martin. So as you can see, there's a range of options, and what Martin laid out are things that are for the long term, like general plan or an 8-year housing element, and then there are things that are nearer in, such as maybe you want to build a second unit, or something you do tomorrow or today is go over and talk to Hip Housing about house sharing, right? So there's the right nows, the short term, the midterm, the long term, and so there's a range of options. And so we're going to do a second table discussion, just like we did, where you're all equally participating and sharing your experiences and your perspectives. And you'll be using these 2 questions. And again, I urge you to use your independent feedback form if you want as well. So your table discussion will be captured just the same way as last time. But I think what we're interested in is also any individual thoughts that you have. So as we think together about all of these upcoming planning efforts and the future of San Carlos, what kind of community do you want to live in? So what's important about that? What hopes do you have? What concerns are coming up for you? So you can take this conversation where you want to go with what's top of mind for you with this landscape of things. And remember, in your folder, the city has carefully laid out some accessible information. Some of you may want to understand the nuts and bolts of the development process. That information is there for you. Some of you are like, you might want to, start the conversation, and that's information to take home and refer to later. So they're really trying to let you get into this and educate yourself at the level that makes sense to you. And again, this notion of we're kind of in this together with these housing challenges. So how else can we work together to better support renters, landlords, homeowners, everybody who's figuring out how to make the future of living here in San Carlos better for everybody, okay? So we're gonna take about 20 minutes for this conversation. Again, enjoy your table mates, use your input sheet if you would like, and then we'll call you back together. We're going to wrap up the conversation, but just the conversation for today, because you can see this is a conversation that's been ongoing in lots of different places, and the city wants to continue this conversation with all of you. But to take us through next steps from the city's perspective, let's invite Martin back.
Okay, so a few next steps here. So We're going to be emailing and posting a report of today's conversation on our housing website at cityofsancarlos.org/welcome home. We're going to add any information and updates that you'll be requesting by any that you could provide in the feedback form. We'll be sure to get that up there. We also want to make sure that you know that you are invited to provide any input through our Shape San Carlos forum and also participate in any of the upcoming City Council, Planning Commission, and other community meetings that we're going to be holding on a slew of initiatives that we highlighted. Also wanted to make sure that we organize a bunch of these different efforts on a timeline to kind of give you a sense of where and when you can continue to be involved in this housing conversation. So the ADU ordinance update and our child care initial study session are going to happen in April 2020 this year. And then in April through June, we'll hear the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. Then July, September will be the BMR ordinance update and the economic development plan update. Then in the fall of 2022 is when the general plan and zoning update will ultimately be considered, but there's going to be a lot of community engagement events that happen throughout this timeline. And then ultimately in summer 2023, we'll have the adoption of the housing element update. But again, there's going to be a lot of different community invitations for ensuring that we have outreach and we have two-way conversations to inform all of these plans. So we encourage you to stay involved in the conversation. If you haven't already, please be sure to join the housing email list at cityofsancarlos.org/mysc. Your input is extremely valuable, and we want to ensure that we get as much of it as possible moving forward through all of these initiatives. It literally takes a village to plan for a village, so we want to make sure that we hear your voices as we develop these things. So with that, thank you very much, and I'll hand the mic back to Mayor Collins.
So how we're going to finish out using our last few minutes, honoring getting you out of here at noon, is the mayor's going to make a few remarks, and then you'll finish out at your table. And before you leave, the most important thing is your feedback about this conversation. So whether you're the kind of person who wanted to give comments on this feedback form or not, please take a moment to give us all feedback about what you found valuable, what else you would like to see happen next. And after the mayor's comments, will be at your tables. But I want to remind you, there will be people here you can linger. HIP Housing is eager and ready to talk to you. The city may want to encourage you to take some snacks home. You got your Super Bowl breakfast, good to go here. So anyway, let's just honor the fact that the city works so hard, and the mayor and the council members were here listening, and we're all kind of learning together. So let's get the mayor up to share his thoughts about the day, then finish at your table.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you to all of you who came today. I can't tell you how proud I am to live in this community. We've got younger people here. We have more mature people here. I have to say more mature because I'm one of those. But the variety, the diversity of comments I heard, the commonality of the concerns was really good to see. And this is a really smart community, and you folks know what's going on. And that is so impressive, and it's so helpful. We do not have a disengaged community. We have a community that really cares about this town. Speaking of the word community, I heard that more and more, and people said why they moved here. They moved here because of community. I didn't move here by choice. My parents moved here, and so I came along with them. I did move back by choice after I had moved out when I was a young adult, but you realize what a great community this is when you get out and you talk to people and you listen to them and what they're all about in their lives and what their lives are all about. I just wanted to make a couple comments. I'm not going to repeat everything that I heard because that's going to be for your email and some of the other comments. But one of the results of being on a city council is that you get appointed to a lot of county commissions and committees and things. And so what happened to me last year is I was appointed to this board of directors for San Mateo County Transit District. And shortly after that, they appointed me to the board of directors for Caltrain. So I go to these meetings once a month and I hear a lot of concerns, and I'm glad we included the transportation discussion this morning because transportation really is a key part of housing. I heard a lot of people say that it's great to live here, but if I can't get around, if I can't find a train on time, or I can't find a bus that comes to my neighborhood, it diminishes the quality of my life. So I will tell you that these are the things that we hear as members of Caltrain board. One of the things I heard was that there aren't enough trains. And I hope you all are aware of the fact that Caltrain's going to be electrified in about 2.5 years. They did have a target date. It turned out to be on my birthday, but it'd be a great gift if it happened. It'd probably be, I always add 6 months to everything, but probably within 3 years, we will have electrified trains. And what does that mean in addition to less pollution, less noise, faster trains? It means more stops. It means more stops in San Carlos. It means more frequent trains. Sometimes up to 8 trains per hour, 4 in each direction. That would be a train every 15 minutes. With high-speed rail maybe taking longer to get here, we may be able to have maybe 10 trains an hour, 5 in each direction during commute hours. And every city says, we want more stops. So we're no different than that. And the Caltrain board hears that loud and clear. Electrification, my hope is that we'll solve that problem. Okay, so now I have to talk about what I was told to talk about. But I had to put those comments, had to insert those comments. Sorry, Susan. But anyway, again, thank you all for coming and participating to this very productive conversation. As Martin mentioned, please continue to stay involved and review the resources in your folder, which you are encouraged to take home with you. And there are also additional resources with the San Mateo County Transit District has information that you previously mentioned, HIP housing, and just watch for a summary report to be mailed to you in the coming weeks. We really do have a challenging and productive year ahead of us on many topics, especially housing and transportation. At the council level, we've talked about things like infrastructure and childcare. All those things are now really priorities for us. And thanks to, we have 3 new council members. You met Sarah this morning, and Laura and Adam. These are younger, very involved members of our community who have a different perspective, who brought a different perspective to the council. And they are listening to the community very intensively, and I'm very grateful to see them on the council. So the Welcome Home San Carlos initiative is very important to us, and we appreciate everybody who came out today and our community partners, as I mentioned, and a huge thanks to Common Knowledge and Home for All. So thank you again.
So as we said, just your table facilitator's got a final question for you, and you'll turn in your evaluations. And again, feel free to linger for food and more information.